Hi, so today is the 6th of November, and as we continue to unpack the horrors of the rise of psychiatry and modern psychology and how they are destroying our current society and education system, I thought I would let you know about something that many people do not realize. You may not know that the intelligence of individuals back in the early 1900s, perhaps more the riffraff sort of part of the population, like myself, yourself, or that sort of thing, there was a psychological classification for intelligence, particularly for those of lower intelligence or considered lower intelligence. And those three official classifications were idiot, imbecile, and moron. And whilst idiot and imbecile, those two words, have existed in the English language for several hundred years, the word moron was actually coined or fabricated or brought into the English language by an American psychologist called H. Goddard. And actually, I've got a photo of him. So I will just go through the definitions very quickly, because actually the etymology of idiot is nothing like what you would think, the original meaning. And we'll just go over what moron is and how the guy brought it in. And I will show you his picture. In a group photo with Freud, I can never pronounce it, Sigmund Freud, and many others whose names you will also recognize. So here we go. I'm using this one here, Webster's Unabridged Dictionary. It's very big. It's about 2,500 pages, really good dictionaries from the 80s. Oh, and by the way, if you look into this latest Oxford Dictionary, which is a good size, you will not find the psychological classification of idiot, imbecile. It will just say archaic, a person of low intelligence. It doesn't give the full story at all. Oxford's a bit sneaky with that at the moment. Modern dictionary have a tendency to try to hide the truth. Anyway, here you go. Idiot. Right. Psychology. A person of the lowest order in a former classification of mental retardation, having a mental age of less than 3 years old and an intelligence quotient under 25. And came into the English language around 1250, 1300, Middle English, from the Latin idiota, from Greek idiotis, and which means a private person, a layman, person lacking skill or expertise. But there's a little bit more in it, which I think is really interesting. And this is from the 1895 Lloyd's Encyclopedic Dictionary. And there's a bit more in a derivation here. It does come from the Greek idiotis. And at the time, so this is referring to the Greek meaning, a man in private life as distinguished from one occupying an official position, it being presumed that the highest intellect and education, nay, all the education, that's actually what it says, nay, all the education, would be found in the government service. Isn't that amazing? That was the assumption. And to an uneducated and unlettered man. So this is the Greek story behind it. But it does come from idios, which means private, one's own. And one of the original English meaning, using the Greek sense, actually meant a private person, as distinguished from one holding public office or civil office or ecclesiastical office. Okay, so that's where idiot comes from. Now, let's see imbecile. So here you go, definition, psychology. A person of the second order, because the first order is idiot, a person of the second order in a former classification of mental retardation above the level of idiocy, having a mental age of 7 or 8 years and an intelligence quotient of 25 to 50. And it comes from the Latin imbecilus, which just means weak. And that came into the language about 1540, 1550, apparently. Good. Not much else on that. But moron. I think this is a brilliant one. Oops, sorry about the camera. So moron does come from a Latin word, although introduced in the English language using that Latin word. And the Latin word here is actually, I had it here, moros. Sorry, not Latin, Greek, beg your pardon. Moros means foolish. But the chap that coined that word and turned it into moron and introduced it as a psychological classification was a psychologist, American psychologist called H. Goddard. And the word here has a little star next to it. Might not see that very well, actually, unfortunately. Let's see. How do I have that there? You might see. I'm going to try to show it to you here where my finger is. It might not work. Anyway, moron. When you see a little star like that in American dictionaries, it means that it's very specifically an Americanism, not a British English. So this chap introduced it as part of their effort to classify intelligence. This is early 1900, and I want to show you a picture of the man. And this is again from this wonderful book because it's so bad in exposing psychiatry. And there's a picture here of Freud with disciples 1909 at the Psychology Conference Group, Clark University, September 1909. And I've put a little arrow there with a man. And I'm going to hold this a little bit because you will recognize names such as Carl Jung and quite a number of other individuals which are actually going to come up again and again the more posts I make on the subject of the rise of modern psychology. So here you go. And as a final note, I want to thank the viewer who recommended this book. I've discussed the fact that there's quite a bit to discuss. I have to be intelligent about it, how to discuss eugenics, who's behind it. Well, obviously, it's those people. There's a lot involved in that, going back to the late 1800s. I've got a lot of books on the subject. There are a number of individuals. Some of these individuals were in that photo. It's just a point of organizing the information in the correct way. And if it doesn't work on TikTok, it'll have to go on Rumble, but I will let you know about that. However, I want to thank the person because when I received the book, I opened the page, just first page, to have a look at the information. And lo and behold, I opened it right on the section of idiots and imbeciles. And it was perfect because I had the data for Germany and people involved at the time. It was all happening at the same time, by the way, guys. It's all happening. It's all well coordinated. It's US, it's Germany, it's France, it's Britain. Everybody's studying and communicating with each other, going off to Germany. Obviously, began in Germany mainly. But what we have here is I could not quite find the British side of things. And anyway, this book is great because I opened the page and right there, I've got the source. So once I can pull the sources together and the various individuals, I'll make more precise videos on the topic. But at least now you do know that the three words were in fact used as psychological classification of intelligence, human intelligence. Again, another effort at the time, particularly in the early 1900s, as Rockefeller is funding psychiatry and all these men that you saw in the photo there are very busy trying to work out how to control the mind of an exploding population, and which the aristocracy is not too keen on. So, well, you create more classifications. Okay, wait till the next one.